Daniel Harper had always been curious about different cultures. Ever since he was a child, he enjoyed reading books about distant places, old traditions, and communities that lived close to nature. When he finally grew older and saved enough money, he decided to travel across different parts of the United States, especially areas with deep indigenous history. That was how he found himself in the warm, sun-baked lands of Arizona, surrounded by tall desert plants, winding dirt roads, and endless open sky. He had planned to stay only a few days, but life sometimes surprises people when they least expect it. While exploring one of the remote regions, Daniel met an elderly Apache man named Nantan. Nantan had a calm voice, wise eyes, and a warm smile that made Daniel feel welcome. When Daniel asked if he could learn about the local culture, traditions, and daily life, Nantan agreed immediately. He enjoyed teaching younger people about the old ways, especially those who were respectful and willing to listen. Every day, Daniel walked with Nantan through the settlement, asking questions and learning small but meaningful things. He learned how the Apache people cooked traditional meals, how they prepared herbs for healing, how they respected nature, how every object had a purpose, and how every decision was connected to family and community. Daniel tried his best to follow every instruction carefully. The community noticed his good behavior, and slowly, they began to trust him. During one of his visits, Daniel saw a young woman carving wooden shapes near her family's home. She moved her hands gently but with confidence, shaping the wood piece by piece. Her name was Alia. She had a quiet nature, but her silence was not cold, it was peaceful. She often preferred to listen more than she spoke. Her soft smile appeared only when she felt comfortable enough, and Daniel saw that smile the first time their eyes met. At first, he only greeted her politely. She nodded and continued carving. The next day, he saw her again, this time weaving a beautiful bracelet. Daniel admired her skill and told her she had a talent for creating beautiful things. Alia looked up shyly, thanked him softly, and went back to her work. But Daniel could tell that his words had made her happy, even if she did not show it loudly. Over the next several days, their interactions became a little more frequent. Sometimes, Alia offered him water, or invited him to sit nearby while she worked. Other times, Daniel helped her gather wood, or carried small tools for her. He noticed she was patient, gentle, and thoughtful in everything she did. Alia noticed that Daniel was humble, careful with his words, and respectful toward everyone around him. Their connection grew naturally, slowly, and without any pressure. Nantan, being the observant elder he was, noticed the growing bond between Daniel and Alia. He watched the way Alia spoke more freely around Daniel than around other strangers. He also noticed Daniel's eyes soften whenever Alia entered the room. In many Apache families, elders played an important role in guiding relationships. Ensuring respect and understanding remained at the center of every bond. One afternoon, Nantan invited Daniel to sit with him outside his home. The sky was golden from the setting sun, and the warm wind carried the smell of wild plants. Daniel enjoyed moments like these, quiet but meaningful. He did not realize that this moment was about to become more important than he could ever imagine. Nantan began speaking about family traditions, old customs, and the way respect was shown in different situations. Daniel listened carefully, nodding at the right moments. Then, Nantan asked Daniel what he thought of Alia. The question was asked calmly, but Daniel felt a sudden nervousness. He did not want to disrespect anyone or say something that might be misunderstood. Still, he decided to be honest. He told Nantan that Alia was a good person, kind, talented, thoughtful, and that he respected her deeply. Nantan smiled gently. His eyes seemed to shine with a knowing expression. Then he asked another question, but this one held a deeper meaning within the Apache culture. He asked Daniel if he could see himself staying close to Alia, caring for her, and forming a lasting bond with her. The question was phrased in a poetic, traditional manner, one that usually indicated a marriage discussion within the community. Daniel, thinking the question simply meant whether he respected Alia and enjoyed spending time with her, answered yes, without hesitation. He explained that he appreciated her kindness, admired her skills, and felt honored to know her. His tone was sincere and warm. Nantan's smile widened. He nodded and thanked Daniel for his words. To Daniel, it felt like a simple conversation, a cultural exchange about values and relationships. To Nantan, it was a clear acceptance of a marriage proposal. Within Apache tradition, responding positively to such a question, especially to an elder, was considered a deep commitment, a sign of intention to join the family. And so, without Daniel realizing it, he had just accepted a marriage agreement. Later that evening, the news began spreading quietly among the settlement. Elders whispered with pleased expressions. Women smiled knowingly. Alia's sisters tried to hide their excitement, while Alia herself became shy, blushing whenever someone looked her way. She never expected Daniel to feel such affection toward her, let alone agree to something so important. She sat alone for a few moments, trying to calm her racing heart, wondering what the future would bring. Daniel, meanwhile, walked back to his small guest shelter with a peaceful mind, unaware that his life had just taken a dramatic turn. He admired the stars in the sky, enjoying the natural beauty of the night, completely clueless about the whispers, smiles, and preparations building around him. As he fell asleep that night, he felt grateful for everything he had learned so far, never knowing that tomorrow, the entire community believed he would start a new chapter of life. He believed he had simply expressed appreciation and respect. He did not know that, in the eyes of the Apache people, he had agreed to marry not just Alia, but perhaps much more than he imagined. The stage was set. The misunderstanding had taken root, and everyone was waiting to see how Daniel would respond when he discovered the surprising cultural truth awaiting him. The next morning began quietly, but there was a warm excitement moving through the Apache settlement. The sun rose slowly, spreading soft light across the land, touching every home with a golden glow. Birds chirped lightly from the trees, and the early breeze carried a pleasant coolness before the heat of the day arrived. It was a peaceful morning for everyone except that almost every person in the community already knew that Daniel had accepted a marriage proposal. Daniel, however, woke up with no idea what was happening around him. He stretched, washed his face with cool water, and stepped outside with a relaxed smile. He enjoyed mornings like this. The desert was calm, the sky was clear, and the day felt like a new chance to learn something interesting. He expected another day of exploring, learning, and helping wherever he could. Instead, he was walking straight into a cultural surprise that he was not ready for. As he moved through the settlement, several people greeted him with unusually warm smiles. Some nodded respectfully, others whispered among themselves with happy expressions, and a few women giggled gently when he walked by. Daniel noticed the strange reactions, but he assumed people were simply being friendly. He waved politely and continued walking, completely unaware of the meaning behind those smiles. When he reached Nantan's home, the elderly man welcomed him with an even warmer smile than usual. Daniel sat down beside him, ready to learn again. But today, Nantan spoke less about herbs, history, or traditions. Instead, he talked about family, unity, and responsibility. His words carried a deeper tone, almost as if he was preparing Daniel for something important. Daniel listened carefully, trying to understand the direction of the conversation, but nothing seemed unusual enough to alarm him. After some time, Alia walked by carrying a basket of woven items. She glanced at Daniel shyly, and then quickly looked away. Her cheeks held a soft pink color, and her steps seemed lighter than usual. Daniel smiled at her, but he didn't know why she seemed so nervous. He wondered if she was simply busy, or if she was shy because he had complimented her again the day before. What he did not know was that Alia had spent all night thinking about Daniel's answer to Nantan's question. She believed Daniel had willingly chosen her and was honored by it. While she was nervous, she also felt happiness growing inside her. But she had not told Daniel one important detail, one that she hoped someone else would explain first. In Alia's family, there was an old tradition that went back many generations. If the eldest sister received a marriage proposal and accepted it, the man marrying her was also expected to take responsibility for her younger sisters. This tradition had been created to ensure the protection and support of all sisters in the family, especially in times when community life was difficult and uncertain. Alia had two younger sisters, Naira and Talina. Each sister had her own personality. Naira, the middle sister, was strong-minded, outspoken, and confident. She was not afraid to speak her thoughts, even if those thoughts made others uncomfortable. She was sharp and protective of her family, especially Alia. Talina, the youngest, was full of energy. She laughed easily, joked often, and brought happiness wherever she went. She had a playful nature that made everyone smile. Both sisters cared deeply for Alia, and both were excited when they heard the news that Daniel had accepted a marriage proposal. But they also knew the tradition. They knew what his answer meant, and they were eager to see how Daniel would react once he learned about it. Later in the day, Nantan finally decided it was time for Daniel to understand the truth. He asked Daniel to walk with him to the gathering area where the families often met. Daniel followed, curious, but calm. When they reached the place, several elders were already gathered, along with Alia and her sisters. Everyone wore expressions that ranged from joyful to amused. Daniel looked around, confused but still polite. He greeted everyone, and then stood beside Nantan, waiting quietly. The old man gently placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder, clearing his throat before speaking. He began by reminding Daniel of the previous day's conversation, especially when Daniel had said he respected Alia, cared about her, and felt honored by her presence. Daniel nodded. "Yes, I remember," he said softly. "Alia is wonderful." The elders smiled at his kind words. Alia's cheeks reddened again. Then Nantan continued with slow, careful words. He explained that in Apache culture, certain questions held symbolic meanings. He reminded Daniel that the question he answered yesterday was not a casual one. It was a question traditionally used to confirm a marriage bond. Daniel blinked, unsure he heard correctly. "Marriage bond?" he repeated. Nantan nodded. "Yes. Your answer was taken as a promise to marry Alia." Daniel felt his breath catch in his throat. He looked at Alia, who lowered her gaze shyly, her fingers gripping the edge of her shawl. Suddenly, the warm smiles he had seen that morning made sense. The whispers, the greetings, the giggles, all of them now had a meaning. Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, Nantan continued. He explained the old family tradition that the man who married the eldest sister would also have responsibility for her younger sisters. He said it respectfully, without pressure, but with honesty. According to tradition, Daniel's acceptance meant he had unknowingly agreed to join all three sisters. The words hit Daniel like a wave. Responsibility for Alia, responsibility for Naira, responsibility for Talina. He stared at Nantan, then at the three sisters, then back at the elders. His heart sped up. His hands tightened slightly. He felt overwhelmed, confused, and shocked all at once. He admired Alia deeply, but he had never imagined such a situation, not even in his wildest thoughts. Alia looked at him with a soft, hopeful expression, but she also looked nervous. She did not want Daniel to feel forced, yet she trusted the tradition she grew up with. Naira lifted her chin, watching Daniel closely, trying to judge whether he was honest or only pretending to care. Talina, standing slightly behind them, tried to hide a small smile, wondering how Daniel would react. Daniel swallowed hard. He felt the weight of many eyes on him. His mind raced, trying to make sense of this cultural expectation. He respected the Apache people deeply, but this was far more serious than anything he had imagined. He wanted to be respectful, but he also knew he needed time to understand. He barely managed to speak. I didn't know," he whispered. The elders nodded gently. They understood. They knew he was a foreigner to their traditions, and that misunderstandings could happen. But the tradition itself was real, and the community took it seriously. Daniel looked at Alia again. She looked down, afraid of what he might say next. Daniel felt his heart soften. He didn't want to hurt her or disappoint her. At the same time, he knew he needed clarity before taking such a big step, especially one that involved three people instead of one. The atmosphere grew quiet. The air felt heavier. The gentle breeze seemed to pause. as if waiting for Daniel's answer. And in that stillness, Daniel realized that his journey in the Apache settlement was about to become far more complicated and far more meaningful than he had ever expected. Daniel stood in the middle of the gathering area, feeling the weight of everyone's eyes on him. His mind was spinning, and his heart beat faster than usual. He had come to the Apache settlement to learn, not expecting anything more than friendship and understanding. Now he found himself in the center of a serious cultural matter, one he had never imagined he would face. Nantan calmly repeated that the tradition of marrying the eldest sister meant taking responsibility for the younger sisters as well. He did not say it to pressure Daniel. He said it because it was the truth, an old custom that had been followed for generations. The elders believed in honesty and clarity, especially in matters of family. Daniel swallowed hard, trying to gather his thoughts. He wanted to speak respectfully, but he was afraid that anything he said too quickly might hurt someone's feelings. For several moments, he stayed silent, and the entire space remained quiet with him. Alia looked up slowly. Her gentle eyes filled with worry. She could sense Daniel's confusion. She knew he had not understood the deeper meaning of the question the previous day. And she felt partly responsible. She wished she had spoken earlier, explained the custom herself, but she had hoped that everything would turn out easily and peacefully. Now she stood there, unsure of how to help. Naira, the confident middle sister, stepped closer. Her expression was firm, and her voice carried strength. "If you spoke those words without understanding them," she said, "then maybe you should say what you truly meant." Her tone was not harsh, but it was serious. She wanted honesty, not confusion. Her protective nature for her family showed clearly. Talina, the youngest sister, stood beside Naira. Her face held a mix of curiosity and amusement. While she did not speak, her eyes sparkled as if she were watching an unexpected story unfold in front of her. She was not worried like Alia, nor strict like Naira. She simply waited to see what Daniel would do next. Daniel finally found his voice. "I respect Alia very much," he said slowly. "I think she is a wonderful person. But I did not know the question meant marriage. I didn't want to agree to something that important without understanding it." The elders nodded, some sighing softly as if relieved to hear his honest confusion. It was clear that Daniel did not intend to mislead anyone. He had answered with a sincere heart but without knowing how deeply the words were tied to tradition. Nantan placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder again. "This is why we talk," he said gently. "Traditions must be honored, but they must also be understood. And misunderstandings can be cleared if hearts are honest." Daniel looked at him with gratitude. Nantan had always been patient with him, always explaining things carefully. Now too, when things felt too heavy, Nantan's calm presence made everything feel a little easier. Still, the situation was far from simple. Daniel's mind drifted back to the moments he had spent with Alia. He remembered her kindness, her gentle way of speaking, her thoughtful hands shaping wood or weaving threads. He remembered how peaceful he felt around her. But marriage or responsibility for 3 sisters was far bigger than anything he had expected. He took a deep breath. "I care about Alia," he said quietly, "but I need time to understand everything." Alia's eyes softened. She appreciated his honesty. She did not want him to feel trapped or forced. She stepped forward and spoke for the first time, her voice soft but steady. "I never wanted to pressure you," she said. "I was surprised too when I heard what happened. I respect our traditions, but I also believe people should choose their path with a clear mind." Her words eased Daniel's tension a little. He nodded to her, grateful for her understanding. But Naira was not satisfied yet. She crossed her arms and tilted her head. "You say you care about our sister," she said. "But care must be shown with clarity, not confusion." Her words were honest, not rude, just sharp. That was how she protected her family, by making sure no one played with their feelings. Daniel respected her strength. She reminded him of someone who carried responsibility seriously and did not hide her thoughts. He answered her respectfully. "I understand, And I am not here to play with anyone's feelings. I want to do what is right." Talina suddenly laughed softly, breaking the heavy moment. "This is more interesting than I expected," she said with a playful grin. "I thought today would be quiet. But now we are discussing marriage plans." Her cheerful voice made a few people smile. Even Daniel felt some of his stress melt away. Talina's light-hearted nature had a way of softening tense situations. Seeing Daniel's discomfort, Nantan decided to take him for a walk. He did not want the young man to feel surrounded and overwhelmed. "Come," he said, "let us speak privately." Daniel nodded gratefully and followed him to a quieter area under the shade of a large tree. Once they were alone, Nantan spoke gently. "Traditions have guided our people for years," he said, "but they were made for understanding, unity, and protection, not for confusion. If a custom brings fear instead of respect, then the community must look at it with new eyes." Daniel listened carefully. He respected Nantan deeply, and hearing these words made him feel a bit lighter. "I want to show respect," Daniel said. "I never wanted to offend anyone." "You have not offended anyone," Nantan replied. "Your heart is good. That is what matters. Now you must decide what you want, not out of fear, but with honesty." Daniel nodded. He needed to think. He cared about Alia and admired her greatly. But he needed time. Time to understand the tradition, his feelings, and the expectations placed before him. For the rest of the afternoon, Daniel stayed quiet, walking around the settlement, observing people, thinking deeply. Children played nearby, women cooked meals together, and elders sat sharing stories. The warmth of the community touched his heart. He felt connected to these people, yet he also felt the pressure of their expectations. As the evening sun began to set, the elders gathered again. They decided that the situation needed careful discussion, not quick decisions. They planned a community meeting to decide whether the tradition should be followed strictly or if it could be adjusted in Daniel's case, considering it was built on a misunderstanding. Word spread quickly, and soon everyone knew that the elders would meet the next day. Some believed the tradition should stay as it was. Others felt that times had changed, and exceptions should be allowed. Alia, Naira, and Talina waited quietly, each with different thoughts in their hearts. Alia hoped for understanding. Naira hoped for honesty. Talina hoped for something interesting to come from all this. Daniel sat alone that night, watching the stars. The sky was clear, and thousands of small lights twinkled above him. He breathed slowly, trying to calm his thoughts. He wanted to do the right thing not just for himself but for the entire community and for the sisters who were part of this story now. And as he sat there under the open sky, he realized that this experience was teaching him something important. Traditions were not just words or rules, they were living parts of people's hearts, and sometimes the only way to honor them was through honesty, patience, and understanding. The next day would bring a decision. The community would gather, the elders would speak, and Daniel would have to share his true feelings. Whatever happened next, it would change the course of his journey forever. The next morning came with a soft, golden light spreading across the land, touching every home and tree in the Apache settlement. It was the day of the community meeting, the day when everyone would gather to talk about the situation involving Daniel, Alia, and the old family tradition. Even the air felt different, calm, but filled with quiet expectation. Daniel woke early. He had barely slept the night before. Thoughts kept circling in his mind. Alia's gentle smile, Naira's sharp honesty, Talina's playful laughter, and Nantan's wise words. He wanted to do the right thing, but he also knew that doing the right thing required understanding, not fear or confusion. He stepped outside and breathed deeply. The morning was peaceful, but his heart was heavy with uncertainty. He knew he could no longer avoid the situation. Today he had to speak clearly about his feelings, his intentions, and his respect for the community. Meanwhile, the three sisters prepared quietly inside their home. Alia braided her long hair slowly, trying to calm her thoughts. She cared deeply for Daniel, but she feared that the tradition might be too much for him, especially since he had never grown up with it or understood it fully. She hoped he would not feel pressured, yet she also hoped he would not walk away completely. Naira sharpened a small wooden stick absent-mindedly, her face serious. She cared for her sisters and wanted them to be treated with honesty. She was not angry with Daniel, only cautious. She wanted to hear the truth from him, whatever it might be. Talina sat near the window, humming softly as she watched birds fly outside. She was curious to see how everything would unfold. She liked Daniel's gentle nature, and she believed something meaningful could come from this situation, even if it was different from tradition. When the sun rose higher, families slowly began walking toward the large open area at the center of the settlement. Elders took their seats first, forming a circle. Other families soon filled the surrounding space, standing respectfully around them. The atmosphere felt important, like something meaningful was about to be decided. Daniel approached the gathering with careful steps. He felt nervous, but he also felt determined. When he reached the center, Nantan greeted him with a reassuring nod, encouraging him to sit beside him. Alia and her sisters also joined, sitting across from the elders. When everyone was settled, one of the senior elders stood up and began speaking. His voice was slow and steady, carrying a tone of wisdom and experience. He explained why the meeting had been called, how the misunderstanding had happened, and how the old family tradition had caused unexpected confusion. He reminded everyone that tradition was important, but so was fairness. Then he invited Daniel to speak. Daniel felt his heartbeat quicken, but he looked around at the faces of the people who had welcomed him with kindness from the very beginning. He remembered how they taught him, fed him, and trusted him. Their presence gave him strength. He stood up slowly. "I want to start by saying that I respect all of you deeply," he said. "When I came here, I wanted to learn from your traditions, not offend them. I did not understand the meaning behind the question I answered, and I did not want to make a promise I did not understand." The elders listened attentively. Some nodded gently. Daniel continued, "I care about Alia. She is kind, she is thoughtful, and she has a pure heart. I respect her very much. But I also believe that decisions like marriage should come from clear understanding, not confusion." Alia lowered her eyes, touched by his honesty. Daniel turned slightly toward the elders. "I also respect her sisters. Naira is strong and honest. Talina brings joy to everyone, but I cannot make a lifetime promise without understanding its meaning deeply. And I cannot agree to something as important as responsibility for 3 people all at once. I want to be honest, not uncertain." Naira uncrossed her arms slightly. She appreciated his truthfulness. Talina smiled lightly, impressed by his sincerity. The elders whispered quietly among themselves. Daniel's words were respectful and clear, not dismissive. That mattered greatly to them. Then Alia stood up. Her voice trembled a little at first, but she steadied herself. "I want to say something too," she said. "I grew up with this tradition. But I also believe times change. People change. And I think we should choose our paths with understanding and respect. Daniel has shown kindness, not disrespect." She looked at her sisters, then at the elders. "I do not want to follow a tradition blindly if it makes someone uncomfortable or confused. I want people to choose from the heart." Her words surprised many people. She spoke gently, but with strong meaning. Naira stood next. Her voice was firm, as always. "I agree," she said. "Tradition should guide us, not trap us. I want my sister to be happy, and happiness comes from honesty, not pressure." Talina hopped to her feet with a bright smile. "And, to be honest," she said, making the group chuckle softly, "I think Daniel is nice, but having one husband for 3 sisters would be too much work for anyone." Her playful joke eased the tension, and even Daniel laughed quietly, feeling the weight lift from his shoulders. The elders took in everything they had heard. They discussed quietly among themselves, speaking in low, thoughtful tones. After a long moment, the senior elder raised his hand. signaling silence. He spoke clearly. Tradition is important, but it must grow with time. Today, we see that the misunderstanding came from words spoken without full knowledge. We also see that all three sisters believe that choice must be free, not forced. He paused and looked at Daniel kindly. We will not hold you to the old tradition. You did not break it. You simply did not understand it. The entire gathering relaxed. Some people smiled. Others sighed with relief. Alia felt her chest lighten, and Daniel felt a warm gratitude spread through him. The elder continued, if Daniel and Alia choose to know each other more, they may do so freely. If they choose another path, that too is respected. What matters is honesty and goodwill. A gentle silence spread across the group. The decision felt fair and wise. Daniel looked at Alia. She met his eyes, and for the first time since the misunderstanding began, her smile returned soft, warm, and sincere. After the meeting ended, many people approached Daniel to thank him for his respect and honesty. The children waved at him, and the elders touched his shoulder gently, showing acceptance. He felt embraced by the community once again. Later, Daniel walked with Alia along a quiet path near the edge of the settlement. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The air was cool and comforting. Alia spoke first. Thank you for being honest, she said. I was worried you might leave after all this. Atara. Foreman. Alia spoke first. Daniel shook his head. I could never leave without understanding everything. And I could never leave without talking to you. They walked slowly, their steps matching naturally. I do care about you, Daniel said softly. I want to know you better. Not because of tradition, but because of who you are. Alia's smile deepened. I would like that, she said. They continued walking as the evening settled around them, talking gently about their lives, their hopes, and their dreams. It was the beginning of something new, something chosen freely, not shaped by pressure or misunderstanding. And as the stars appeared in the night sky, Daniel felt grateful. He had come to the Apache settlement to learn about a new culture. But he had found much more friendship, understanding, and a connection that crossed differences and brought hearts closer. Whatever the future held, he knew it would be built with honesty, respect, and gentle steps forward one day at a time.